the Research and Development Cell of Kannur University, in association with the Internal Quality Assurance Cell, organized a public lecture program on various topics from the 12th to 23rd July 2022. The fourth lecture was on the topic Physics, Imaging, and AI Coming Together for Healthcare Applications. The speaker for the day was Dr. Zia Saqib, Senior Vice President, Technology Innovations, Reliance Jio.
Good morning to all of you, and thanks for being here. I thank University of Kannur to have invited me here. It's a wonderful experience among so many young people. And today my talk is about innovation, because last few years, actually last many years, we've been working in areas where the aim was to take an idea and traverse the whole journey from the lab to the field, or as they used to call it, lab to land in MIT, Ministry of IT and Electronics and IT. So today I will focus on these areas of physics, imaging, and AI. I know AI has become quite a word these days. A lot of universities are offering AI courses, and data science, machine learning, and all those things. It's relatively new term, not necessarily a new science by itself, but a new term which has emerged in the last, let's say, 20 years. However, physics has been a very mature subject, as all of you know. Physics is more than 4 centuries old in terms of equations and theories and all that, since the time of Newton, and perhaps before that. Imaging is somewhere in between. Imaging is not as old as physics, probably 150 years old, and it's not sprung up just 20 years ago like AI and machine learning and all that. So how do these three things actually come together? What is the relevance of this? Why are we talking about it today? So we are talking about it because everything has become multidisciplinary. Today, putting a label to yourself as I am a data scientist or I am an AI engineer, what is AI? Do you think AI is something which sprung up 20 years ago or 30 years ago? Okay, I don't think so. AI is a concept which has been around for quite some time, at least 50 years from prior to today, and it has taken multiple shapes, multiple names, and multiple labels over these 50 years. Okay. Then we'll talk about Internet of Medical Things. We have heard about Internet of Things. Little twist to that is the Internet of Medical Things. We'll touch upon that a little bit. Then I will talk about eye treatments and eye problems in the rural areas, because as some of you probably know, eye health today is a major concern all over the country, more so in rural India. Okay. 20% of our population today, is approximately 30 crore people in this country, are suffering from some stages of diabetes. Diabetes is very common. And out of these 30 crore people, perhaps 60% of them are suffering from eye problems. This not many people know. And the first damage which happens because of diabetes is damage to your eyes. Okay, we'll talk about that. Then what are the research opportunities? What are the entrepreneur opportunities? How can you become an entrepreneur? And what is the social impact of all this? Because all these things have a lot of social bearings. And if you have any questions. Okay, what is AI? As I said, AI is basically nothing but statistics, a combination of statistics and software. As they say in many places, a statistician is somebody who is very good in statistics but not in software. Software engineer who learns a little bit of statistics becomes a data scientist. So the whole idea about software has reincarnated the concept of AI. So AI was nothing but many of these techniques in statistics and mathematics, and when you give the software to it, it becomes suddenly machine learning and data science and all that. So basically, many wonderful libraries are available in Python and R today, as all of you know. Okay. Many of them have encapsulated well-known algorithms and techniques in AI. Okay, there are hundreds of techniques which are available, and they have been encapsulated in these ecosystems of Python, PyTorch, and TensorFlows and all that. So you don't have to worry about those techniques. You just use a library, and you can work on it. That is one area. So most of these well-known algorithms are available as methods, as you know. Computational powers in the last 30 years has increased 10 times. Okay. Large amounts of data today is called as big data. I mean, obviously it will be big data, because 10 years ago there was hardly any data. So they used to call it data. Today, because that is 10 times bigger, we call it big data. So big data is not a magical word, it is just, you get a lot of data, so from somewhere it becomes big data. So if you have big data plus statistical techniques, well-known techniques, plus software, that is what AI is. So if you label yourself as an AI person and these things move around, then you will have difficulty. So labeling is not advisable. And if you add a domain knowledge to AI, okay, then that makes things magical. Suddenly you have these companies who are doing wonderful because they combine AI with some kind of a domain knowledge. The domain knowledge could be healthcare, it could be agriculture, it could be education, or many other things. So if you understand the hierarchy of this, okay, it works like this. AI by itself will not lead you very far. Just say I'm an AI engineer, unless you apply it to a particular domain. And when you apply it to a particular domain, basically what you're doing is you're taking big data, using some well-known techniques under the hood of these libraries, and you should be good in software, at least using this software. And of course Python, R, C++ and all those obviously are important. So this is the ecosystem in which we work. As I said, by itself AI is nothing but collection of algorithms and statistics and operations research. These are very mature and old academic subjects. Operations research started during World War II by the military of United States of America, and many of those algorithms actually today are called as machine learning. Okay, when you apply this into a domain, it has a lot of meaningful outcomes, meaningful results, and I'll show you some results. I'll show you. Now, domains like optics, computer vision, and linguistics. Okay. Many of you here are probably doing research in NLP, which will take you into the field of linguistics. Computer vision is relatively new area as compared to optics. Optics has been around for more than 4 centuries, and many of these products and solutions today, I mean I'm talking of in the context of geo, are touching thousands and maybe millions of lives. Okay, bring it all this together. But all said and done, today the biggest problem and unsolved problem is interpretability of AI. When you talk about especially deep learning, it is still not interpretable. It is you treat the deep learning as a black box. There's an input, there's an output. How that is mapped is not very clear. There is no theory behind it as of today. However, there are certain frameworks which are coming up, which are helping us in interpreting deep learning. What is deep learning? Anybody? Deep learning is nothing but a model, and that model is nothing but weights. Okay. So when you say a model, actually is nothing but a weight file. There's a binary file, which has weights in it, in some kind of matrix format, and that is called as a model. Now, how that matrix was formed is not very well understood today. Okay, some people are trying to find solutions to that, but it is not still an unresolved problem. Okay, so we are sitting today, I believe, is an era of science and technology, and I will call it not an era of science and technology, but a golden era of science and technology. Okay. It is the most opportune time in the last, I would say, 200 years, where we have the opportunity to do something without being in Silicon Valley, without being in Bangalore, without being in Hyderabad, without being in Mumbai. Yeah. Sitting right here, right now, a lot of things are available today, which was not available till even 20 years ago. 20 years ago, if somebody wanted out of IT or technology, he had to move into one of these areas I just mentioned. Not today. Multiple disciplines are coming together to solve real life problems. And then, as I mentioned, the ecosystem like Python and R are facilitating this innovation. Even fields like optics and imaging actually have given to simulations. You don't have to have physical lens and physical components in a lab to do a lot of experiments in optics. It is not necessary today. There are a lot of simulation software, open source software, which are available, where you can do a lot of experiments in optics. And imaging, of course, is mostly about software. Okay, all of you know that. Okay. And interestingly, internet today is creating such a nice ecosystem for all of us. Sort of free knowledge is available, which was not available a few years ago. So if you put all this together in a basket and say, I have free knowledge, I have simulation software to do optics, I have imaging software, and everything is here. Okay, so what are we waiting for? What are we missing? What are we missing? Why is suddenly things are not shaping up, especially in India? The answer is perhaps we are missing the right orientation. Okay. In academia today, not only this university or any particular university, today is oriented towards knowledge, giving of knowledge, and then you are asked to go out and find a lucrative job for yourself, which is okay, which is fine. Many of us started our career like this, and there's nothing wrong in it. But the question is, we are missing the right orientation to take advantage of these things all put together and start something new, perhaps developing a product which is needed by the society. So I'll just go through this historical thing. X-rays were invented in 1895, okay, almost 140 years ago, by Wilhelm Röntgen. All of you know that. It was part of physics, and it has given us wonderful results over the last 100 years. We've done wonderful things not only in medicine but also in industry using X-rays. Nuclear medicine was started to appear in 1950s, okay, to diagnose pathology. Okay. In 1960s, they invented sonar, which is used in sonography and a lot of such fields today in medicine. It's basically part of physics. CT scans and MRIs 1970s, part of imaging, part of image processing, isn't it? Computer vision was used in 2000, about 20 years ago, to detect and predict diseases. And as of today, we talk about putting it all together. If you put all these things together, sorry. Oh. I pressed the wrong button. Yeah. So if you look at innovation, let's say in medical devices, okay, medical device happens to be one of the largest businesses all over the world. All these things are put together to make a medical device. You need physics, you need optics, you need AI, you need computer vision, and into all into some kind of a magic box, and create a medical device. AI in healthcare, how does AI help? I was mentioning some time ago, we were meeting some faculty members, that AI, a lot of people believe that AI has suddenly given us a lot of insight. It is true. And some people try to dismiss AI as just a bunch of hype and only theoretical academic kind of knowledge. But let me tell you this, it is neither a hype anymore, nor it has lived up to its expectations as what envisaged 20 years ago. We still are working on it, but please do not dismiss AI. Please do not dismiss machine learning and deep learning. Okay, today, as of today, we can have assisted and automated diagnosis and prescription using AI. It is happening. We are doing drug discovery. Drug discovery was one of the most tedious experiments and most expensive in the world. Now we can do drug discovery using simulations and AI. Gene analytics and editing of genes to do research in genetic diseases, cancer and other such diseases. And of course, a lot of devices are being developed, and things like personalized medications and care and all that. So AI actually is doing a lot of good work. It is not a hype, and we would like to emphasize that AI has been very beneficial to medicine in the real world. And when I say in the real world, we are using it on at least 20,000 people through Reliance Hospitals and Reliance Foundation. Okay, these technologies. All of you know AI is being used for image analysis in radiology. Okay, it's very common, it's even common academic problem statement. AI is also used in digital pathology. Okay, if you have a whole screen slide, whole slide kind of a thing, which is 1000 by 1000 pixels, it will take a pathologist 4 hours to read it and understand, 4 hours. Whereas computer vision and AI does it in seconds. Okay. So that is a very widely used application. And the most important is AI for detection of diabetic retinopathy. This I was talking about, because as I said, eyes are not only the windows to your soul, eyes actually are windows to your health. And that is the only organ which you can view non-intrusively to check your health. For everything else, you need intrusion, taking your blood or tissue. But eyes, you can see eyes, the retina of your eyes, and I can figure out what is the state of your health. Okay. So, as I was mentioning, almost 60% of people who have diabetes will suffer from diabetic retinopathy. And what happened is, on your retina, the blood vessels, they rupture, they bleed. Okay, and it is difficult to detect even by a doctor. Even ophthalmologists can miss it today. And it has been found that if diabetic retinopathy is not detected in time, let's say first few years or 2-3 years of your diabetes, it can lead to vision loss and in very severe cases even complete blindness. So why we started our research and work in diabetic retinopathy is that number one is, as I said, it is very difficult to detect by human doctor. Second is, human doctors, ophthalmologists are very few in this country. You know how many are there in India? Anybody? How many ophthalmologists are there in the whole country? Any guesses? There are less than 40,000. Less than 40,000 ophthalmologists in India of a population of 145 crores. You can calculate the ratio. It comes down to one doctor in 3 lakh people in the rural areas and one doctor to 15,000 people in the urban areas. Not a very fantastic number. So many of these people in the rural area are actually going blind because of undetected diabetes and diabetic retinopathy. So the AI and machine learning and computer vision has been tremendously helpful in this area, tremendously. I mean, I just, on Friday we were doing eye camp, and we found almost 30% people suffering from this, and they did not even know it. They did not know it. Another very fantastic area which is not only research based, is also product development area is what we call Internet of Medical Things. So use AI to monitor patients with very complex respiratory diseases such as asthma and OPD and all those. Gait analysis, Alzheimer's disease and strokes. All these things can be detected and monitored using AI. So AI is not just hype. I was saying it is not hype. You have smart patches, as some of you probably know it. Smart patches to monitor your vital parameters such as your blood pressure, your pulse rate, and even your glucose level. And smartphone based fundus camera. So now when we talk about fundus camera, usually fundus cameras are very expensive, very bulky, and difficult to train on. People, it takes time to train on. So what is the need of the hour is to develop something which is handheld. I can take it to the rural areas, scan people within a short period of time, and give them a diagnosis within 60 seconds. Actually, in reality it is 10 seconds, but we always claim 60 seconds because there could be latencies. So we have a system where I can give you a report in 10 seconds. What is your, how does the eye look like? Using just a smartphone and a little bit of optics adapter in it. Now this is an area which is again an area of research and prototyping and all that. I mean, in Internet of Medical Things, you have, today people wear headbands, badges, camera clips, you use smart watches, and many sensors which are embedded into your clothing. So I have sensors in my clothing, not right now, but potentially you can do that. That will measure all my vital parameters as I walk around, and send it to the cloud, and cloud does a lot of analytics on it. And if there is a problem in my health, I will be notified. I will be notified through SMS or voice message or whatever. So this is another area where AI has been very helpful and doing quite well. And a lot of scope for products in this area. A lot of scope. A lot of people need this because very few doctors are available in certain areas of the country. Where there are very few doctors, I mean, all these things actually are being very helpful. Okay, one other area of interest, and I know many of you probably do this term, it's called photobiomodulation. Okay, it is a field of optics. It is a field of optics, but recently, just a few years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, it has been found that certain types of photobiomodulation actually can be used as a treatment in medicine, especially in eyes. I'll talk about eyes because it has been our latest concern. How can you use photobiomodulation to actually improve, not only detect, but improve your eyes without any medication? No medications no injections, nothing. Okay. So what is photomyolination and how did it work? Actually is a process of throwing light of a particular wavelength on your tissue. Okay. And what it does is it triggers a certain biochemical reaction when you expose tissue to this kind of a light, and the photons in the light get absorbed by the tissue, and it triggers what we call as a photoacceptor molecule regeneration. So I'll show you a diagram here. So this is, let's say for example, this is a tissue, and you throw light, for example, in this case let's say an eye. I throw light on the eyes of a particular length. Please don't look into a laser, red laser or anything. Don't self administer all these things, but a particular length, if it's thrown into your eyes, what it does is activates what we call as transcription factors. Okay, and overall if you look, it alters your gene transcription, and that results into protein transcription, and that creates what we call as a right micro environment for survival or regeneration of the cell. So all your dead cells and cells which are diseased can be revived by throwing light on your eyes of a particular wavelength. So I'll go back. Yeah. Now photons, as it is known very well, that photons are used. Light is used in many natural phenomena such as photosynthesis in plants. Okay, all of us know that. And phototransduction in vision, we know that. And recently we found that this light actually stimulates mitochondria, which mitochondria actually is part of your cell, which is responsible for keeping the cell alive. So what happens when your sight degenerates is what happens is your mitochondria actually goes to sleep. As more and more mitochondria goes to sleep, your cells die and you lose vision, and eventually it leads to blindness and all that. And that it doesn't happen only in this, it happens through the whole body. So what is aging? What is aging? Aging is nothing but our mitochondria is going to sleep every day. More and more mitochondria are sleeping. And there comes a time when the majority of them are sleeping, and that causes death. Somehow if you can regenerate this mitochondria, bring them back to life, you can extend your life. You can live not only longer life but healthier life. Okay, that is in general to all the tissues, but I specifically mentioned about eyes. Okay, so let's say if you're wearing glasses today, and you have a vision acuity problem, and you try this photomodulation, it has been shown that your vision acuity improves by at least 2 to 3 numbers power within a period of 6 months. So if you do this light therapy, your glasses the power will go down. In some cases, you don't need to wear glasses. That is one. Number two, if somebody is suffering from diabetes or diabetic retinopathy, it has been shown that your diabetic retinopathy can be reversed. Fantastic technology, very good. But the light therapy has been around for quite some time, but light therapy used in eyes is relatively new. Okay. So what is done? In PBM, you do there's a device, we have built a device, and you simulate the eyes with 2 or 3 wavelengths. 590 nanometers is for yellow light, 670 is for near IR, and 850 is actually IR light. These 3 wavelengths are exposed to your eyes for 15 minutes, 3 times in a week, for 3 weeks. And if you do this 3-week kind of a treatment, and we do a lot of measurement before and after, we find that there's a lot of improvement in the eyes. So this is 590 to 850, 4 minutes per eye, okay, over a period of like few weeks, and sometimes it can go up to 10 to 15 minutes. And once you do that, your eyes will start showing positive results. And how do you measure it? You measure it by taking an image, that is one, and also using a device called optical coherence tomography. It's called OCT. Some of you probably are aware of it. It is like a device, and it uses a very well-known principle of reflection of light and calculating the time taken for light to travel the distance. And from that time, we calculate if you have any bleeding vessels or any holes, say. So OCT gives you that. So we are developing an OCT device as well, and we measure it after 3 months and 6 months. Okay. So OCT today, if you want to buy an OCT, they start from $35,000 to $150,000, which is approximately 28, 26, 27 lakh rupees, or to all the way to crores of rupees. Not possible to have them in rural areas, absolutely not. So we are developing an OCT device which is less than $5,000. So what are the ocular diseases which can be cured by using light therapy, fundus camera imaging? There are many diseases, like retinitis pigmentosa is a disease. Then we have glaucoma. Glaucoma is very, very prevalent in the population. AMD stands for age-related macular degeneration. So your eyes, in the center of your eyes, there's a circle, and it degenerates with age. So people, when they age, that degenerates. Diabetic retinopathy found mostly among diabetic people, and methanol intoxication, over drinking, alcoholism. So if you drink too much of alcohol, the first organ of the body which gets affected is your eyes. Okay. So all these conditions can be treated by photobiomodulation. So in all these conditions, your mitochondria goes to sleep. It goes to sleep and it dies eventually. It dies. So what we do is we have to make it alive, bring it back to life. This is okay. Now, why are we talking about all this? Because my focus today is to stress or focus on product development. Okay. We have done enough of science. We have done enough of theory. Okay. How do we take this theory, this lab experiment, into the real world? Is what product development is all about. What is a product? Basically, is a tangible output. It's a tangible output. So I'm not talking about research papers. I'm not talking about graphs or equations. I'm talking about a tangible product which has some either social impact. It should reach millions of people, or it should make you money. Two things define a product. And if you can do this, you have a successful product. Product usually has what we call as a multiplier effect. So you have one IPR, or you have one patent on a product, and you develop a successful product. It is a multiplier effect, which means you can generate either revenue or numbers in terms of social impact over a period of time. Modern education system, whether we are sitting in a college or university anywhere in India, including the so-called premier institutions like IITs and ISC, they have just started looking at product development as an orientation. Most of these institutions have done wonderful job. These are our towering institutions in the country. But it was missing. This part was missing. The orientation of your education towards product development was missing. People think that product development is very difficult. How am I going to do it? How will I do it in my college years? Is it possible? Is it even thinkable? The answer is yes. Academic excellence plus industry orientation will lead to product development. All of us know that. But why are there very few products coming out? We know that. Why? Because perhaps one is mindset. We have a mindset of graduating and finding a job, and at least for the short period of time, a short lifespan, it sounds good, it looks good. And another hard problem is to find the right problems to solve. So if you have the right problem to solve and you have an IPR, product development is a very good possibility. okay, what are the challenges today from a practical perspective? Is that we all know about data security. I mean, this part has been over talked about. It has been discussed in multiple forums. Security, cyber security, this and that. Certainly, it is needed. It is certainly is needed. But we don't have to get all worked up because of data security. Okay, if you take care of the basic security paradigms, you are able to secure your data. That is one. Data privacy is a problem. Okay, data privacy is a problem because if you want to take some idea or some product in the global scenario, for example, you have to address this issue because many countries across the world take privacy extremely seriously. Okay, in some places, the privacy laws supersede security laws, which means at the expense of their security, they will preserve their privacy. You take European Union, they don't care if a person can be a security threat, but even his data is private. So they don't give that data to police authorities and all that. And especially in two areas, in medicine and finance, AI has to be interpretable. When I get some results and I put an input and get an output, and I'm not able to map it back to the input, I have a problem. And many of my customers will ask this question: that how did you get this? Can you recreate this? Can you reproduce it? Okay, can you explain this? So explainability of AI today is one of the biggest unsolved issues which you have to solve. Okay. So I'll talk about certain research opportunities and research frameworks which are available, which we also use. One very well-known project is called Monai. Some of you probably know it, Monai, and it is a open source framework which can be used to do a lot of 2D and 3D classification in medical science. It is specifically designed for healthcare. It can be also used for brain tumor and abdominal CT scans. And you can also use Monai to develop federated learning. What is federated learning? Federated learning is that your model does not reside in one location. Your model actually is dispersed geographically and logically. Okay, and you use separate models to develop your central model, which is called as federated learning, and it also helps in privacy preserving because nobody will be able to get the complete picture about a particular person or a particular entity even if they capture one model. You have to capture hundreds of models to be able to figure out, for example, my details, that kind of thing. So federated learning is an area which is coming up in the real world. Second project is called Captum. Captum is an explainable AI framework. As I mentioned earlier, although AI deep learning is still a black box. It is not open to a lot of analytical explanations. But Captum, it seems, has been able to explain some of the decisions which have been taken by deep learning. For example, if I say a picture of dog, if I enter a picture of dog and it says it's a dog, I should be able to explain why it's a dog, why did he say a dog or cat or whatever. So Captum actually goes back to the original image and highlights those pixels which were responsible to classify this image as a dog. So you're not just saying black box, I put an image and I got it out. So there are ways of mapping it back from output result into a image and say these pixels or these areas are responsible for this particular classification. Captum is doing a very good job, and many problems in medical diagnostics and prognosis have been using Captum for quite some time. Another project is Project Krypton. Krypton also is used for privacy and security of machine learning. Now when I say privacy, I'm not talking of privacy of data. I'm talking of privacy and security of the AI system itself. Okay, let's say you have developed something, you have a model, and you want to make a product out of it. How do you make sure that nobody else steals it? Because eventually everybody is putting their model on the cloud somewhere at some server or some place. How do you ensure that my IPR is secure and protected? So Krypton actually allows you to protect your IPR in the AI model, not the data itself. Okay, data obviously is important as far as your customers are concerned. But what about AI model and the IPR behind it, the weights which you have calculated and everything? Krypton actually helps, and it's a very interesting area for doing a lot of research in this. Now let's talk about entrepreneurship opportunities. What are the possibilities that some of you may be interested in entrepreneurship, starting a small company? See, some of these statements belong to Geo. Actually, we are doing this work, so that's why I've come up with this statement. One is this private and secure AI infrastructure for hospitals and clinics. One of the projects which we are working on. If somebody is interested in that, he can formulate a problem statement in this area, and we can collaborate in the sense that you can visit our labs, you can do experiments, and you will also get internship, fellowship. And you can spend time in our Mumbai lab and some time in your college and develop your research. Okay, that is one area. Second area is diabetic retinopathy monitoring and non-intrusive treatment. So monitoring of diabetic retinopathy and non-intrusive treatment, which means no injections, no medicines, is a very important part of our research. And anybody who's interested in it may please show your interest. And this area is right now, we already are in the field with this. A company is being formed, a private company, startup is being formed, and which we are taking it to the rural area. We have developed one camera, which is fundus camera using a smartphone with some optics. Second phase is we are going to develop an OCT camera, which is optical coherence tomography, which will use optics and AI to monitor somebody's diabetes non-intrusively in rural areas. So basically it comes under the umbrella of telemedicine for rural health. Some privately available data sets which we use, okay, these are very well-known data sets. MRI, Open fMRI is a very famous data set. Oasis for neuroimaging software. If you are interested in neuroimaging, this is a very important data set. Then in our research we have used APTOS and IPACS with 82,000 images, 82,000 eye images in IPACS, and APTOS is about 14,000. So close to 1 lakh images for training diabetic retinopathy. And there are many more such data sets which are available. So if somebody is specifically interested in something, I can give you a list which you use. And some data sets belong to us as well. We have our own data sets. Okay. Schemes and policies in the government which will help somebody if they are interested in entrepreneurship. The most popular one and the most useful one is the middle one. It's called the Multiplier Grant Scheme, MGS. And I'll tell you what it is. What Multiplier Grant Scheme says is that if you have an idea, any idea, I'm not talking about medicine. Medicine happens to be our current interest, but any idea you have, the government of India under the Ministry of Electronics and IT will pay you 2 crore rupees as a seed money, as long as you get on board a person from the private industry as a mentor, advisor, or board of directors. The government pays you 2 crore rupees to do your what they call as seed money, where you do experiments, develop a prototype, and if you have a prototype which is acceptable in society by certain measures, there are certain parameters given, then you give in more money. And then what happens after that is, when they call it Series A funding, then the whole project comes down into the private sector, and some private sector player will fund this project. Okay. Very interesting. Many companies have come up using MGS. I can name many of them. which came through this, and today they are doing extremely well. Then you have technology incubation and development of entrepreneurs TIDE scheme. It's also under Ministry of Electronics and IT, where they don't pay you any money, but they provide you an incubation environment, which means they give you space, electricity and all that, so then you don't have to pay any rent. They provide you with a lot of mentors, people who are in the field. They'll give you ideas and help you with your ideas. And also they provide reimbursement for filing of patents. So if you have a patent usually is an expensive affair, and Government of India will completely reimburse you if you are filing a patent under TIDE. And then third one is Innovation in Science Pursuit for Inspired Research Program under DST, where they give 30 lakh rupees to a group of students who have novel idea and who have published one paper in a PubMed journal. So if you have a PubMed journal publication and you have research in that area, they'll pay you 30 lakh rupees as a seed money. Okay. Sometimes it is enough, sometimes it may not be enough, but it is a good start. So these are the three major schemes which are available in Government of India, which people can, some of you can actually leverage. Then schemes and policies in Reliance. Reliance today owns such small companies, about 500 to 600 such companies, and through what they call as Reliance Gen Next. Reliance Gen Next is actually a scheme in which Reliance as a company has invested some large amount of money, in which they incubate such small companies with ideas. They provide you all the help, and imagine the help you'll get from Reliance internally. The people we have wonderful people who are marketing, research development and all that, they'll help you. Reliance Investments. Reliance Investment comes in this next stage when you can show that you have some idea, that idea can be translated into a commercial entity. Somebody is willing to pay for it. Either somebody is willing to pay for it, or you have impacted the lives of at least 10,000 people by screening them and giving them some diagnosis, not necessarily medicine. Then you come under Reliance Investments, and they'll take up from there and they'll scale it up to very big numbers. And university collaborations through Geo Institute. We have, some of you probably are aware, Reliance has started a company, a university called Geo Institute, okay, which is among the 6 designated institutes of preeminence, okay, including IIT Bombay, IIT Delhi, Madras, BITS Pilani, Geo Institute, and I think BITS BIT Mesra. These institutes have been defined as preeminence. Through that, we do a lot of research. I'm also part of it. I'm an adjunct faculty there, and we a lot of projects. They encourage professors to start companies. They encourage students to start companies. Money has never been a problem. Okay, and looking, sitting in from Geo Institute, I can tell you one thing: that money has never been a problem in India. Contrary to what you may have heard, it is the other way around. People with money actually are looking for ideas to invest. Okay, there are a lot of people who have money. They are super rich people, which are very few. Then they are rich people. There are many of them. Rich people, I'm saying, rich people who have a net worth of 200 crores, for example. There are many of them, thousands of them. 200 crores is a lot of people. Those people actually are looking for investing, and they want to invest in companies. Okay, the money is not a problem. So these are the possibilities. If anybody is interested, they can collaborate. They can do their joint research and things like that. Yeah, my talk ends here. I hope I articulated the idea of product development versus services, and encourage all of you to look into this possibility of starting something new based on an idea. But idea by itself is not enough. Okay, most ideas end up in research papers, and research papers are very rich source of ideas. Okay, But why is it that less than 5% of those ideas ever come to the market? Because they need somebody to execute. You need people who know execution, people who can take things to the market. And this is where we have to bridge the gap between academia and industry. And you can find a lot of people in the industry who can be your execution partners, who can take an idea from you and actually execute it in the ground. I have a team of 20 people. Out of the 20 people, 10 people actually are execution people. They are, they give algorithms, your ideas, implemented and showed on the field. And such people, trust me, are very few. Okay. So if you can find such a person, you are very lucky. And if you don't find such a person, you can contact Geo. They'll find somebody for you who can take an idea and execute it for you, provided we have the right environment and the right permissions. And it has to be under a framework, legal framework. So thank you very much for listening. And if you have any questions, we can. As I said, these are the products which we are working on: handheld, smartphone-based fundus camera, optical coherence tomography, photobiomodulation-based treatment of eyes, and telemedicine for ophthalmology. Anybody is interested in it, you are welcome to join in.
Now the session is open for discussion, and I would like to invite Professor Anil Ramachandran sir to coordinate this session. Okay, now we can ask our questions to Dr. Zaya Saqib. We can use this precious time of his. If you want to ask questions, just raise your hands.
Sir, regarding the photobiomodulation, we studied and experienced that when we exposed to UV as well as visible light, there may be damage to the eye. So, but you are talking that it will cure the retina or something. Can you explain the science behind it?
Yes. See, if you expose to only red light, which is about 640 nanometers, and if it is done over I mean, when we say exposing it, it has to be the right amount of light, irradiance, which is acceptable limit is about 100 microwatts per centimeter square. So if your light is actually doing more than 100 megawatts per second square, it will damage the eyes. So this is as per ISO standards. As long as your light is restricted to less than 100 or rather 0.1 watts per centimeter square, it is shown to be beneficial, especially when you use these three different wavelengths: 590, which is yellow; 670, which is near infrared; and 850. Below 100 microwatts, it has been shown that in the case of diabetic macular edema condition, within 3 months, the condition is almost 90%. And this has to be repeated every 6 months. So this is not a one-time treatment. It is a lifelong treatment which you have to do for the rest of your life, provided it is under certain specifications. So usually what happens, you buy something from the market. Please don't do that. Don't try that. That light actually is not benchmarked. We don't know what kind of line. We don't know how much distance you are supposed to give. The device which we are talking about fixes the distance and fixes the irradiance of that. And under those conditions, it is found to be useful. The idea is that when you as I mentioned in one of my slides, is that when you expose this light to the tissue, it activates the mitochondria. There are a lot of other things which are happening, but actually what it happens is it activates the mitochondria, which in turn, mitochondria is responsible for the energy in your tissue. It is the energy giving part of the tissue, which makes your tissue live. So as the mitochondria is dying, your tissue also is dying, and eventually it goes to the end of life. So if you can reverse this mitochondria and prevent the sleeping mitochondria to sleep further, then you are actually reactivating the mitochondria, stops bleeding because now your mitochondria has revived, and overall condition of the eye improves. We believe that it doesn't apply only to eyes, it applies to many other cells also. It has been tried by other research groups for healing of your diabetic foot. Diabetic foot also actually is a very major disease, neurology. You get ulcers in your feet. That has been shown very commonly last 15-20 years. If you expose your diabetic foot to NIR light, it improves. I mean, it is an improvement. But not many people have tried with eyes. So we tried with eyes under very controlled environment, very controlled, and under supervision of doctors. So that is the whole idea. Now the biophysics behind it is quite involved. I can send you some research papers on that. There are papers which have been published, which show the complete biophysics behind it. But overall, it is mitochondria. In the surface, your mitochondria actually revives, and that revives your tissue. And some people claim that it can even slow, some kind of aging process in certain parts, okay, which are exposed to the outside world, foot, eyes, skin. Some people use it for skin treatment, but I don't endorse to it. I've never seen any results, but skin also is being used. I mean, a lot of beauticians use it to revitalize the skin and all that. Red light.
Thank you, sir. Any other doubts?
Yeah, you have my email address. If anybody wants any questions which may come to you after this seminar, please let me know.
Fine. Sir, my name is Umesh. Right now I am doing PhD at Central University of Kerala. Sir, you just told that in non-invasive way, we can identify diabetics by looking through our eyes, right?
Yes.
Because is it any product is available for this in market?
Yes, products are available. See, I tell you how today doctors diagnose retinopathy. A typical ophthalmologist has what they call as ophthalmoscope, a small device which they actually look into your eyes, and then they diagnose and give you a prescription. Now, as I said, that the ophthalmologists are very few, so we can't depend on them to scan 30 crore people, 40,000 ophthalmologists in the whole country. So the next device which has been invented is basically not to depend on the ophthalmologist, but just take an image. So I can take an image and then take it to the ophthalmologist later on offline, or I can give it to AI engine. And so the way this is taken is using a fundus camera. Now the challenge in fundus camera is very unique compared to other devices like a telescope or a microscope. In a telescope or microscope, the illumination comes from outside, external illumination, and then you do imaging of that. In a fundus camera, the illumination and the imaging has to happen coaxially, which means I have to send light inside your eyes, because your eyes are not lit naturally, they're dark inside. So I have to inject light and then take an image, and both of them are coaxial. So which is the challenge? Challenge in fundus camera is that alignment of the lenses with the iris, the pupil and the retina, and making sure that your illumination light and the imaging light comes back same is a huge challenge. That is the reason why there are not too many cameras in the market. Very few. Most of them are imported. Most of them imported. There are only 3 companies, Indian companies, which have started making cameras in India, and I'll give you the names. One company is called Intuvision. Intuvision. Okay. Second company is called Remedio, and third one is called as Forest Technologies. All 3 of them are Bangalore based, and they have developed these cameras, but unfortunately these cameras are pretty expensive. Each camera costs about 6 lakh rupees, handheld camera, which means it is not accessible to the rural population. How many doctors in rural areas can afford 6 lakh, 5 lakh rupees camera? Very few. So although these companies are doing it, but they are not still affordable. What we have done is we have removed a lot of complications from that and used a smartphone, which is in everybody's hand today, and developed some optics to capture images. Now, what is the cost of this camera? Is close to 50,000 rupees. But right now, we are not selling it. We are not interested in selling that camera. It is not our business. But it costs about 50,000 rupees. Okay. We have developed this camera and we are taking it to the rural area. So, I take it to rural area in Maharashtra. We scan people, and the image goes back to our cloud where our engine is running, inference engine is running, and that inference engine creates a report, converts into a PDF, sends it back to the email. So, if you give me the email, you will get a report within 10 seconds using smartphone based fundus camera. Now, this smartphone based camera will be available to somebody if they are doing some meaningful research. I will give it to you for free, but it is not available for sale. It is not a business of Reliance to sell cameras. We are more interested in reaching to the rural population in terms of social impact. This project is social impact. If I can get 1 million, 2 million people screened within 1 year, I get credit for that in the company. But if I sell for 50,000 rupees, they say, what is this? I mean, what kind of business is this? Not interested. So, from a social impact point of view, the project has very high value. From a revenue point of view, may not be today. It is not a revenue making project. Okay. So, if somebody wants it as a research, we will provide you one to do research. But you have to be in that particular area to do research. You have to be interested in diabetic retinopathy, and you should be willing to go to the rural market, the rural areas to do it. We'll give you 10 cameras, no problems.
Thank you, sir. I think it will be very useful if you are releasing that product because right now almost all the products is an invasive way to identify the diabetics, and I think because my mother is a diabetic patient, so I'm searching for such a device where we can identify diabetics in a non-invasive way. So one more question is any speech database available in your lab? Speech related database?
Not in my group. Right now I'm not part of any speech project. Okay. But there are other groups in Reliance who are working on it. So if you send me an email, I'll forward it to people.
Okay, sir. Sure, sir. Thank you.
So nowadays we are using MRI, magnetic resonance imaging, and positron emission tomography. So why can't the method or the optical tomography is not popularized, or optical tomography is nowadays using in industry or not?
Yes, they are using in industry. For example, they use it for detecting product defects. Defects in semiconductor products. They use OCT to do that. That is one. Now, OCT, as I mentioned earlier, is not only for eyes. OCT is not only for eyes. OCT can be used for checking your heart, your kidneys. Okay, but the only thing is it uses an endoscope. You have to insert an endoscope, fiber optic cable inside your body, and then take an image. The reason why OCT is suddenly very useful in the ophthalmology is because you can directly, without any intrusion anywhere, you can actually take an image. In 60 seconds, you can figure out if there's any problem. Whereas for heart and for lungs and other organs, you have to use it is intrusive. So it is called endoscope. You put endoscope inside your body, and that is little painful also. Although it can be, in theory it can be used, and some people are using it. Industry, they are using it to detect faults or defects in material, very, very minute materials, because OCT can actually detect surface impurities up to the level of 20 microns. 20 microns, very precise. So wherever you need any defect to be studied, which is at the level of 20 microns, OCT is a very good example.
So some of the technology you have mentioned is that the technology, the main thing is that you are calculating the time of that light reflection and all, you
Right,
are
right.
calculating the time.
Photobiology.
Yeah, actually, how it is possible, because the velocity of light is around that means 3 lakh kilometer per second.
Yeah.
So how can be that time can be evaluated?
Correct. Very good question. Actually, if you look at the speed of light is 3 lakh kilometers per second, and to be able to do that, you have to actually be able to detect something like 10 to the minus 15 seconds, which is very difficult. So scientists have come up with a newer version of OCT. What we are talking about, this one is called time domain reflectometry, time domain, which means you calculate the time. The second version of this is called spectral domain. So instead of calculating the speed, the distance the light has covered, which is extremely difficult, you actually have a multispectral light. Okay, so it is not one light which is reflected. I have 3 different wavelengths which are reflected. Okay, and here instead of calculating the distance, distance because of the speed of light, I am going by the wavelength of it. So what happens in optical OCT is that you have a source and you have a tissue. In the middle there is a mirror. Okay, the mirror reflects partly the reflects to the tissue, and partly it goes up to a sensor, and partly it goes down, reflects back, and then the resolution between the reflected light and the light which is absorbed by the tissue and reflected back is calculated. So instead of doing it in a time domain, which is very difficult, we use a spectral domain. In spectral domain, I calculate the frequency of light, wavelength of the light, rather than the time spent. So time domain reflectometry today is not used. I mean, it is still used in some old devices, but those devices are very expensive because of this 10 to the minus 15 seconds. You should have that capability to measure that for time domain. You cannot develop an affordable OCT with that. You can develop it, extremely expensive. I mean, you can imagine the kind of sensor you need to measure that kind of time. So, and there another new version coming up is called sweep source OCT, sweep source, where there is no camera, there is no to detect it. The source itself actually decides which frequency is being reflected by the tissue, and this technology can be developed in a small handheld. I can have a small device and take it to the field to do that. In India, it is not available. It is available in the world, in the sense in Germany and all that, very expensive. So we are developing that technology now, sweep source. Now our interest is not to increase knowledge in it. Knowledge is already there. Our interest is to develop something which is useful in the real world. Can I use sweep source to develop something handled? That is my problem statement. Not that I can use sweep source and develop and show some theory, some physics theory. No, I'm not developing a theory. So we have found that the easiest way to develop a handheld light device is using sweep source, and that's what we are doing right now. It's a very interesting technology. I don't know of any single product in India which does that. I may be wrong, I may be limited, my knowledge is limited. If somebody knows that, please raise your hands, but to my knowledge, it is not there. And if you can develop this and take it to the rural field, it will be one of a kind, at least in India. And that's what the plan is. The plan is that. So not only taking the image is one part, we'll also take the cross section of your eyes using OCT to monitor your progress. So it is not some kind of a mumbo jumbo that I do this and then suddenly you feel okay. No. It is scientific. I'm measuring before and I'm measuring after. It is a very scientific method of measuring. It is not subjective. I'm feeling good and I'm feeling like, no, not that. We are not getting into that. That is unscientific. So the only way to prove it scientifically is that you measure before treatment, measure after treatment. And if you can see a difference, then it is worth exploring further. And perhaps one day it will become a product which will be available in the market. Today, the intention is not to make it in the market and sell it. We are not camera sellers. We are basically there for the social impact. So all these things which are being developed today are not for any commercial purposes. They are for social. maybe sometime in the future, some other group will come and say, no, this is a good product and we'll take it to the market and make money. It is possible. Yes.
Sir, you mentioned how your team operates with tools in the field and how the data goes to the cloud. And you
Right.
also mentioned the importance of privacy in this matter. And can you elaborate how your team ensures the data privacy? Any paradigms you use or something like that?
See, right now we are using Captum out of the box. So we have done not much theoretical work in it. So we use Captum, which is a Facebook framework. And the way it works is like this: is that the model actually is secure. So our model is hosted on AWS, Amazon, and there are many models are hosted on AWS. So how do we ensure that it is secure and all that? So we use Captum to ensure that every check-in and check-out is basically, there's a gated check-in check-out, which means if somebody is using the AI model, we know who is using it at what time and all that. So that is one. Number two is the way these weights are designed, the way these weights are, we call it pruned weights. The actual weight file and the pruned weight files are different. Okay, these are basically compressed weights. So my weight file is, let's say, 1000 by 1000 matrix. I prune it, I compress it to, let's say, 512 by 512, maybe less, maybe 200 by 200. So even if somebody steals that weight file, it is compressed weight file. So you can't figure out the intellectual property behind it. How did we calculate? Because that is our main work. So to answer your question, Captum is being used for privacy preserving, and we also use Captum for federated learning, which is not gone to the market yet, but eventually it will. The idea is that I will download my model to a local device, edge device. So there is no internet required. So you download the device on your mobile phone, inference happens on the mobile phone, and instead of image coming to the cloud, only the weight file is coming to the cloud. So that all those things we are doing, making sure that the privacy issue of the patient, the end user, is not affected. Because a lot of people may say, you're taking my eyes, images of my eyes, and God knows what you are doing with it. Okay, privacy issue. It may not be as much an issue in India, but in other countries it is a huge issue. I mean, they will allow even the criminals in those countries, their data is protected. So you can imagine how seriously they take it. A murderer, arsonist in Europe is protected by these laws. So you can imagine what kind of rights patients have there. And our product eventually will go into global market. So we have to take care of this right in the beginning.
So I'll just a little bit away from your topic.
Yeah.
You said about some of the sensors, some of the for gait analysis, accelerometers. I think these are all important devices which are used in sports.
Yes, yes.
So is Geo into something into that sort where we are trying to have data analytics for not only for functional efficiency but also for high performance sports? Because this is a big area, big industry where all the European countries are into it.
Yes.
Because all these watches, all these come from Finland. Is there something called Make in India where Geo is attempting on these sensors which can be very valid inputs in terms of body dynamics, body measurements, body data, which can not only for healthcare but also for the high performance sports. Even I would say visual acuity is very important in sports.
Yes.
For the perception.
Right.
Is Geo interested in something of these sort of innovation centers?
See, as far as visual acuity is concerned, that is a matter of research in Geo, and I know people are working on it. Now, as far as sports performance is concerned, there is one huge group which works on sports performance, but I don't know the details of it. I have to figure it out because, as you know, Reliance is into cricket and all that big time, and they have a group which does a lot of training for these players and all that. But from the angle of high performance, I'm not very sure. So I have to come back to you on that.
Any further questions? Okay, I think let's over this session.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir.